I'm about to tell you why Santorini nearly destroyed my knees, why I paid €40 for tomatoes and feta, and most importantly, the 3 Greek destinations that give you everything the famous islands promise without the pain, crowds, or tourist prices. One mainland town cost me just €45 for an entire day, including accommodation, meals, and activities. If you're planning Greece as a mature traveler, what I'm about to share could save your vacation and your budget. A couple of years ago, planning my milestone 60th birthday trip, I chose Greece as my dream destination. But halfway up Santorini's famous cliff stairs, watching tourists push past, while my knees screamed in protest, I finally understood why my Greek friend had warned me. Santorini is for honeymooners and Instagram, she'd said. Not for people who value their knees. Below me, tourists were taking selfies while travelers struggled with luggage. Above, hundreds more steps zigzagged up the cliff. This wasn't the serene Greek paradise the travel blogs promised. This was a beautiful nightmare, designed for 20-year-old legs and unlimited budgets. Before I share what I learned the hard way about Greece's most famous islands, let me say this. Greece is magnificent, and millions visit happily each year. But if you're over 55 and subscribing to channels like mine for honest travel advice, you need to know what the Instagram photos don't show. Hit that subscribe button if you want real talk about destinations, not just pretty pictures. Because what works for influencers in their 20s can be genuinely challenging for those of us with joint issues, mobility concerns, or fixed budgets. These observations come from my own experience and those of my travel group, ranging from late 50s to mid-70s. Your experience might be completely different. Physical abilities vary enormously at our age. What challenged me might be easy for you. Many people absolutely love these islands and have wonderful experiences there, but the specific challenges I'm describing are real, documented, and worth knowing before you book that dream Greek vacation. Santorini's reality hit me before I even reached my hotel. The ferry from Athens, the cheapest option at €60, was a 5-hour endurance test. No reserved seating meant standing or fighting for chairs. The bathroom situation was shocking. Long lines, wet floors, no grab bars. My friend Barbara, in her early 70s, nearly fell twice. The high-speed ferry, double the price, was better but still challenging with luggage and crowds. Flying direct to Santorini costs 4 times as much and books up months ahead. Once you arrive at the port, the real challenge begins. Santorini is essentially a cliff with villages perched on top. The port is at the bottom. Your hotel is likely at the top. The options are sobering. The cable car, when working, has lines that can stretch 2 hours in summer. Standing in heat with no shade, surrounded by cruise ship crowds, several people in our group felt faint. The donkeys, those charming animals from postcards, they're unpredictable. The path is steep and slippery, with droppings, and falls happen regularly. I watched a man get kicked. The handlers showed no concern. The stairs, all 588 of them, are what broke me. They're uneven, worn smooth by centuries of use, and shared with donkeys. There's nowhere to rest. The railings are intermittent. Tourists pushing past create dangerous situations. My knees, already compromised by arthritis, were screaming by step 200. By step 400, I was genuinely concerned about making it. The locals selling water on the stairs charge €5 for a small bottle. They know their market, desperate travelers who didn't expect this climb. But the physical challenge was just the beginning. Santorini's prices shocked even well-traveled members of our group. A basic hotel room with a caldera view starts at 400 euros in shoulder season. Without the view, you're still paying 200 for something that would cost 50 elsewhere in Greece. Restaurants know they have captive audiences. A simple Greek salad that costs 8 euros in Athens costs 25 in Oia. A basic fish dinner for two with wine easily hits 200 euros. My friend Tom jokes he paid 40 euros for tomatoes and feta. The famous Oia sunset experience deserves special mention for all the wrong reasons. The narrow streets pack with thousands of tourists starting 3 hours before sunset. If you have any mobility issues, forget it. The pushing and shoving are aggressive. There's nowhere to sit. The restaurants with sunset views require reservations months in advance and minimum spends of 100 euros per person. We tried to reach Oia by bus, standing room only, no air conditioning, winding roads that induced nausea. The taxi back cost 80 euros for a 20-minute ride. Transportation on Santorini becomes a daily frustration. The local buses are designed for budget backpackers, not people with back issues or mobility concerns. No schedules posted clearly. Drivers who don't speak English. Stops that are just spots on the road with no shade or seating. Renting a car sounds logical until you experience the roads. Narrow, winding, with sheer drops and no guardrails. Parking in any town is nearly impossible. The stress of driving here aged me 5 years. The lack of medical facilities on Santorini should concern any visitor over 55. There's one small health center for the entire island. For anything serious, you're helicoptered to Athens. The wait for the helicopter can be hours. The cost, if your insurance doesn't cover it, can reach tens of thousands. A woman in our hotel had a mild heart episode. The delay in getting proper care turned it into a major event. She spent 3 days in Athens hospital and missed the rest of her vacation. The walking infrastructure on Santorini seems designed to challenge anyone with mobility concerns. Those charming cobblestone streets in photos, they're uneven, slippery when wet, and have no handrails. The steps between levels in towns like Oia are steep and irregular. Many restaurants and shops have steps with no alternatives. The famous blue-domed churches everyone wants to photograph. Most require climbing or descending steep, narrow paths. I watched countless visitors give up and turn back. Mykonos, the other Instagram-famous island, proved equally problematic, but for different reasons. Where Santorini exhausts you physically, Mykonos assaults you financially and socially. This is a party island that happens to have older visitors, not a destination that welcomes them. The music from beach clubs pounds until dawn. The prices make Santorini look reasonable. A sunbed at a beach club costs 70 euros. A cocktail costs 25. A bottle of water at the beach costs 8 euros. The beaches that make Mykonos famous are particularly challenging if you're not as steady on your feet as you used to be. Paradise Beach and Supra Paradise require either expensive boat taxis or terrifying bus rides on cliff roads. Once there, the music is deafening. The crowd is drunk by noon, and there's no shade unless you pay for a premium cabana at 200 euros. The quieter beaches still require navigating rocky paths or steep descents. The sand is often coarse and difficult to walk on. The waves can be surprisingly strong, with no lifeguards at many beaches. But the challenges of these famous islands pale in comparison to what I discovered in Athens, and why the mainland alternatives I found completely changed my perspective on Greek travel. Athens hit me with 40-degree heat and air pollution that made breathing feel like work. Standing at the base of the Acropolis, I watched visitor after visitor turn back from the climb. The marble steps, worn smooth by millions of feet, are treacherous. No handrails for most of the ascent. No shade whatsoever. No places to rest. The afternoon I visited, 2 travelers had already been taken away by ambulance. Yet every Greece itinerary insists you must see the Acropolis. Nobody mentions you might not survive the attempt. The approach to the Acropolis starts deceptively easy, then turns into a battle against gravity, heat, and your own pride. The path is a mix of ancient marble, modern concrete, and exposed bedrock. Each surface offers its own hazard. Marble is slippery, concrete crumbles, bedrock is uneven. The crowds push from behind, creating pressure to keep moving when you need to rest. Water sellers charge €10 for bottles that cost €1 elsewhere. They position themselves strategically where travelers are most desperate. My friend Robert, in his 70s and reasonably fit, made it to the top but paid for it. Severe dehydration led to heat exhaustion. He spent the rest of the day in our hotel, missing the museum he'd specifically come to see. His wife made it halfway and turned back, spending €40 on a taxi to return to the hotel alone. They'd dreamed of this moment for decades. Instead, it became a medical emergency and a source of regret. Mykonos town, while flatter than Santorini, presents its own challenges. The narrow streets that look charming in photos become wind tunnels. The famous Mykonos wind can literally knock you over. I saw a woman's walking aid blown from her hands. The marble streets become ice rinks when wet. The complete lack of public seating means you're always searching for somewhere to rest, usually an expensive cafe. The medical situation on Mykonos is even worse than Santorini. The island's health center is overwhelmed in summer. English-speaking doctors are rare. Pharmacies run out of common medications. My friend Susan couldn't find her blood pressure medication anywhere on the island. She had to take an expensive ferry to Athens to get a prescription filled. The stress of that situation alone raised her blood pressure dangerously. The social atmosphere on Mykonos alienates many visitors our age. This is an island where restaurants don't open until 10 p.m., where breakfast places cater to hangovers, not health needs, where every meal assumes you want to party, not relax. The few quiet restaurants that might suit older adults charge astronomical prices because they can. We paid €300 for a simple dinner for 3 people. The food was mediocre, but it was the only place without blaring music. Athens itself challenges mature travelers in ways tour guides don't mention. The sidewalks are a disaster. Broken marble, missing sections, motorcycles parked across them. Tree roots create trip hazards. The metro is excellent if you can reach it, but many stations lack elevators or escalators. When they exist, they're often broken. The buses require stepping up high with no assistance. Taxis refuse short trips during busy times. The city that created democracy seems to have forgotten about citizens who can't sprint. The Plaka, Athens' old town, marketed as charming and walkable, is neither if you have mobility issues. The narrow streets climb steeply. The tavernas everyone recommends require climbing stairs to terraces or descending to basements. The shopping street Ermou is a river of humanity, where standing still means being pushed. The National Garden, supposedly a respite, has paths in disrepair and benches too few and far between. Air quality in Athens poses serious health risks that nobody discusses. The combination of vehicle emissions, geographic bowl effect, and summer heat creates smog that rivals Beijing. My friend Martha's asthma, controlled for years, flared so badly she needed emergency treatment. The pharmacy gave her an inhaler with instructions in Greek only. The doctor at the hotel spoke minimal English. The experience terrified her so much, she cut her Greece trip short. Island hopping, that romantic Greek experience, becomes a logistical nightmare for those of us over 60. The ferries are not created equal. The slow ferries take forever and have limited seating. The fast ferries are expensive and can be rough. Both require navigating narrow stairs with luggage. The ports rarely have porters or assistants. The schedules change without notice. Missing a ferry can mean being stranded for days. The stress of managing this transportation ruins many vacations. I learned this personally trying to reach Naxos from Santorini. The ferry was 3 hours late. No announcement in English. No seating at the port, no shade. When it arrived, the rush to board was frightening. People pushing with luggage, narrow gangways, steep stairs to seating areas. My cabin, supposedly an upgrade, was down 2 flights of narrow stairs with my luggage. The bathroom was so small, I could barely turn around. For this pleasure, I paid 120 euros. The food situation on Greek islands surprises travelers expecting healthy Mediterranean diet options. Tourist restaurants serve heavy, oily versions of Greek classics. The Greek salad you imagine doesn't exist. It's tomatoes and feta drowned in oil. The fish is frozen and expensive. The vegetables are often canned. Finding lighter, healthier options requires leaving tourist areas. But then you face language barriers and limited menus. My diabetic friend struggled daily to find appropriate meals. The heat on Greek islands from June through September is dangerous for anyone over 60. But nobody talks about this honestly. It's not just hot, it's humid, still, and inescapable. Air conditioning in many hotels is inadequate. Restaurants rely on fans that just move hot air. The beaches offer no shade unless you pay premium prices. The traditional siesta time means everything closes just when you most need to escape indoors. Dehydration and heat exhaustion are constant risks. The bathroom situation across Greek islands needs to be addressed because it affects every older traveler. Many tavernas have squat toilets. Even Western toilets often lack seats. The plumbing can't handle toilet paper. Handrails are non-existent. Cleanliness varies wildly. My travel companion developed a UTI from avoiding public bathrooms, which led to a kidney infection that required hospitalization in Athens. This is not uncommon. Let me share some harsh truths about cruise ship excursions to Greek islands, since many people our age experience Greece this way. The ships anchor offshore, requiring tender boats to reach ports. These tenders bob violently. Getting on and off risks falls. The excursions are rushed, requiring fast walking to keep up. The guides speak to the middle of large groups. If you're at the back with hearing issues, you miss everything. The free time is usually in tourist trap areas with inflated prices. You see Greece through a bus window and return exhausted. The Instagram versus reality gap in Greece is massive. Those blue and white churches, they're at the end of steep paths. Those charming tavernas, they're up 3 flights of stairs. Those pristine beaches, they're down cliffs with no facilities. Those quaint villages, they have no medical care, pharmacies, or accessible services. Social media has created expectations that reality can't meet, especially for travelers with physical limitations. What frustrates me most about these famous destinations is how they're marketed to people over 55 as must-see places. The reality is that both Santorini and Mykonos have become victims of their own success. They're optimized for cruise ship day trippers and wealthy young tourists. The infrastructure can't handle the crowds. The prices reflect captive markets. The physical challenges are ignored in marketing. And older visitors arrive expecting paradise, but find exhaustion and expense. The comments I hear from other travelers our age on these islands break my heart. I saved for 5 years for this. This was my bucket list dream. I feel like I've failed because I can't handle the stairs. No, you haven't failed. These islands have failed to honestly represent what visiting them requires. And the travel industry keeps selling the dream without mentioning the reality. But here's where the story gets better. After all these challenges, I discovered the Greece that actually works beautifully for mature travelers. The alternatives I found will completely change how you think about Greek travel. After watching friends struggle through the Instagram islands, I discovered the Greece that actually works for people our age. My cousin in her 70s thrives in Nafplio, a Peloponnese town that delivers everything Santorini promises without the suffering. Flat streets, Venetian architecture, beaches you can actually reach, and prices that don't insult your intelligence. She pays 60 euros for a beautiful hotel room, enjoys €8 lunches with wine, and walks everywhere without climbing a single cliff. Drop a comment below sharing your own Greece experiences. Did you find the islands as challenging as I did? Or did you discover hidden gems that actually work for older travelers? Your insights help everyone in our community make better choices. Nafplio should be on every Greece itinerary for those of us over 55. The old town is largely flat, with marble streets that have texture for grip. The waterfront promenade stretches for miles, with benches every 100 meters. The Bortzi Fortress looks dramatic in photos, but you don't need to visit it. The view from shore is perfect. 3 beaches within walking distance offer easy entry to calm water. The town has real medical facilities, pharmacies on every corner, and locals who genuinely welcome seniors. The restaurants in Nafplio cater to Greeks, not Instagram tourists. A full lunch with local wine costs 12 euros. Fresh fish dinners run 30 euros. The tavernas have ground floor seating with shade. Menus include lighter options for those watching their diet. The service is paced for relaxation, not turnover. My friend Helen, diabetic and particular about food, found multiple restaurants that accommodated her needs without drama or extra charges. The Peloponnese region around Nafplio offers day trips that don't require climbing mountains. Epidaurus Theatre is accessible by car with close parking. Mycenae has a shuttle from the parking area. Maestras has a lower and upper section. You can see plenty from the lower without the climb. These sites have actual facilities, bathrooms, cafes, shade structures. The distances are manageable. The roads are good. The crowds are a fraction of what you'll find on islands. Thessaloniki, Greece's second city, works brilliantly for visitors over 60. Yet tourists skip it entirely. The waterfront is flat for miles. The bus system is senior-friendly with reserved seating. Museums have elevators and air conditioning. The food scene rivals Athens at half the price. Medical facilities are excellent. The locals speak English. The hotel prices are reasonable year-round. My friend Michael, recovering from hip replacement, spent a month here without a single mobility crisis. The Pelion Peninsula delivers the Greece of your dreams without the Instagram crowds. Mountain villages with manageable walks. Beaches with road access. Traditional architecture without cliff climbing. The famous Pelion train is actually accessible for older adults. Local guest houses run by families who care about comfort. Prices that reflect reality, not fantasy. The friends who discovered Pelion return annually. Those who went to Santorini never returned. Crete works if you base yourself correctly. Skip Heraklion and Chania's old towns with their challenging streets. Stay in Rethymno's newer section, flat, walkable, near everything. Or choose Agios Nikolaos with its lakeside walks and accessible infrastructure. Avoid the south coast entirely, too remote, too challenging. The north coast between Rethymno and Agios Nikolaos offers everything you want with infrastructure you need. The Dodecanese island of Kos surprises seniors positively. Flat as a pancake, extensive bike paths if you still cycle, beaches with facilities, real hospitals because locals live here year-round. Prices reflect local economy, not tourist fantasy. Direct flights from many European cities. The castle requires no climbing. The Asclepian archaeological site has shuttle service. This is Greek island life without the suffering. For those insisting on experiencing Santorini, despite my warnings, here's how to minimize the pain. Stay in Kamari or Parissa, the flat beach towns. Skip Oya entirely. Take the bus to Fira, see the view, leave immediately. Book the morning cable car before cruise ships arrive. Never attempt the stairs or donkeys. Eat in local tavernas, away from caldera views. Accept that you're paying premium prices for limited experiences. Lower your expectations dramatically. Transportation solutions that work in Greece do exist. Flying between destinations costs more, but saves your body. Aegean Airlines has good services for older passengers. Hiring private drivers for day trips eliminates parking stress and provides door-to-door service. The KTEL bus system on mainland is actually comfortable with reserved seating. Ferries with cabin bookings reduce stress despite the cost. Treat transportation as part of your accommodation budget, not an extra expense. The seasonal strategy for Greece matters enormously if you're over 55. September and October offer warm weather without crushing heat. Tourist crowds diminish. Prices drop. Locals have time to help. The sea is still warm. The light is magical. November through March requires research. Many islands shut down, but mainland Greece offers cultural experiences without crowds. April and May are perfect, except for Greek Easter when prices triple. Accommodation strategies that work include booking apartments with kitchens to control your diet, choosing hotels with elevators even if they cost more, staying in newer developments with accessible design, avoiding traditional properties with their steep stairs and tiny bathrooms, booking directly with properties and explaining your needs. Greeks are generally helpful when they understand your limitations. The food strategies that keep you healthy in Greece include eating lunch as your main meal when tavernas serve fresh food, asking for less oil in everything, ordering grilled fish and salads without dressing on side, finding bakeries for breakfast instead of hotel buffets, buying fruit from markets for snacks, drinking bottled water exclusively, avoiding tourist restaurant moussaka and pasticcio, which are heavy and often reheated. My personal revelation came in a small mainland town called Karpanaisi. No foreign tourists. Locals who invited me for coffee, walks through forests, not up cliffs, family tavernas with homemade food, a hotel owner who drove me to the pharmacy personally. Total daily cost, including everything, €45. This Greece exists everywhere if you abandon the Instagram checklist and embrace real Greek life. The friends who enjoyed Greece most shared common approaches. They chose 1 or 2 bases instead of island hopping. They prioritized ease over Instagram moments. They traveled in shoulder seasons, They learned basic Greek phrases. They accepted that they'd see less but experience more. They didn't compare their trip to 20-year-olds' adventures. They found their own version of Greece. The ultimate lesson from my Greece experiences is that the famous sites aren't always the best sites for mature travelers. The Acropolis is magnificent, but so is the view from a rooftop restaurant. Santorini's caldera is stunning, but so is Nafplio's waterfront. Mykonos beaches are famous, but Kos beaches are accessible. The Greece in your imagination might not match reality, but there's a different Greece waiting that might exceed your dreams. Before you book that Greek island vacation, ask yourself honestly about your physical capabilities. Can you handle stairs? How's your heat tolerance? Do you need regular medical access? Are you comfortable with transportation uncertainty? Can your budget handle tourist pricing? If you answered no to any of these, mainland Greece and lesser-known destinations offer better experiences than the famous islands. Subscribe if this honest assessment helped you reconsider your Greece plans. And remember, the best vacation is one you can actually enjoy, not one that looks good on Instagram, but leaves you exhausted and broke. The Greece that works for mature travelers exists, but it's not where travel influencers send you. It's in Nafplio's flat streets and fair prices, in Thessaloniki's sophisticated comfort, in Pelion's manageable mountains, in Kos's accessible beaches, in mainland towns where Greeks actually live. Skip the Instagram islands. Find the real Greece. Your knees, your wallet, and your memories will thank you.